What's up, everyone? This video is my series of videos, The Year in Wrestling 1993, coming at you right now. This is part 4. I believe this is part 4. I hope I'm not wrong about that. Talking about 93. Not just talking about WWF and WCW in this video. I'm going to start talking a little bit about ECW. I became aware of this show, ECW Ultra Clash 93. I own it on DVD. I actually saw it probably, I don't know, 8 years ago. I think I've owned it for 8 years. But it came out in 93. Obviously, I did not get ECW in Milwaukee because it was not on television here. And I did not buy any ECW videos until 1999. I started ordering old ECW television shows and some of their pay-per-view events on videotape back in 99. That's how I became an ECW fan. As I said, I was not aware of ECW in 93 because they were based in Philadelphia and the East Coast, and I didn't get to see their TV show or their big events, because all their big events that they released in 95, 96, 97 were only sold on videotape. And I wasn't even aware of ECW until 1998 in May, when I saw their first pay-per-view live. So, I'm going to talk about ECW Ultra Clash 93. Took place in September of 93, right after SummerSlam 93. And I'm pretty sure if Eddie Gilbert was in ECW in 92 and 93, he was the head booker. I'm not sure if Eddie Gilbert was still the head booker at Ultra Clash 93 in September 93. I think Paul Heyman obviously left WCW 92. In fall of 92 he left. And he showed up in ECW as a manager. He was managing Sabu in October. Very early on in October and September, he was managing Sabu and Paulie Dangerously, a.k.a. Paul Heyman, also did some commentary on an ECW television from October 1993 with Joey Styles. I believe you can watch it on the network. There's a match between Taz and Sabu, one of their first one-on-one matches in October 93, and Paul Heyman is on commentary with Joey Styles. So, I think Paul Heyman was in control, and he was the head booker of ECW for Ultra Clash 93. I don't even know if Eddie Gilbert was still there. Him and the boss of ECW in 93, Todd Gordon, him and Todd Gordon had a falling out. So Paul Heyman became the head booker, basically. Matches at Ultra Clash 93 were The Public Enemy defeated Jason Knight and Axel Rotten. This was a very bloody matchup. And Jason Knight was known in ECW as Jason. Later on, Jason, the sexiest man on earth. Jason Knight was also on a Monday Night Raw in 93 doing a job to Lex Luger as a narcissist. So Jason Knight, if you don't know who he is, he was Jason, the sexiest man on earth. Later on in ECW, he would manage Just Incredible. And with the team of the Impact players. Just Incredible Landstorm, Jason, and Don Marie were all together in it. So, that first match, Public Enemy, Jason Knight, Axeron, was a war, and it was a bloodbath, and I don't even remember who won. They had a women's Battle Royal. Sensational Sherri was in this. She was just released from the WWF. I believe she failed a drug test for marijuana. So she had a short run in ECW in the fall of '93, and a tiny bit. Sherri appeared in February '94 until February '94. ECW had another big show called the night the line was crossed. Sherri was also on that show. She was a manager. She was managing Shane Douglas. After she wrestled a few times in ECW, she became the main manager to the ECW World Champ, Shane Douglas. So Sherri was in this Battle Royal. And some other women were in it. I forget their names. You had a Scaffold Match. This was crazy, out of control. This was awesome stuff to watch. JT Smith had a very early run in ECW in '93, and he'd come back in '96, in '97 for a short time. Then he left again. But JT Smith took on the Dark Patriot. The Dark Patriot was Eddie Gilbert's brother, Doug Gilbert. So the Dark Patriot took on JT Smith. It was a scaffold match, and it was craziness. JT Smith took a bump. He was standing on the scaffold. It was probably 15, 20 feet up above the ring. And JT Smith took a bump standing on the scaffold and basically just fell down into the ring onto his hip and onto his side. That was pretty damn awesome to see, and a crazy bump he took there. And then they would go into the crowd and start brawling near the announcer's area. And Joey Styles was yelling, screaming, "Get away from me. I didn't sign up for this." And basically it was a brawl between the Dark Patriot and JT Smith. It ended in a brawl. The Dark Patriot wins the scaffold match. And ECW, this show, Ultra Clash, ECW was different. The first time you ever saw ECW, you knew right away it was different than WWF and WCW. It was way different. It had a real feel to it. It wasn't any bullshit cartoon characters, stupid ass 80s and early 90s cartoon characters. There was none of that around in ECW in 93 or 94 or 95. ECW, you could almost say it didn't feel scripted. It didn't look scripted because a lot of the guys beat the crap out of each other, and there was nothing about ECW was sports entertainment. The feel of the show was gritty and hardcore and straight up ass kicking wrestling. It was just great. ECW, the time they were in business, they did great stuff. Revolutionary stuff that WCW and WWF would not do. You could say ECW got X-rated a lot of times. And they did. But that was something different. It wasn't what WWF or WCW did. And WCW and WWF could not do what ECW was doing at the time. But it worked for ECW. That hardcore style worked for them. And the fan base loved it in Philadelphia. Up next, after the scaffold match, you had two masked men. They were a tag team in ECW in the early days. Super Destroyer number 1 took on his partner Super Destroyer number 2. They were dressed in like black bodysuits with black masks. One of them beat the other one and took the other guy's mask off. So there, that ended, and it was okay. It wasn't great, and it wasn't that bad. Shane Douglas defended the ECW championship, which he just won from, I believe, Don Morocco or Superfly Snuka. I don't remember, but Shane Douglas was the ECW champ. He defeated the Sandman, and the Sandman had a lame-ass surfer gimmick. He wasn't the Sandman that we all know. He was not the cane-swinging Singapore cane-swinging, cigarette-smoking, beer-drinking, hardcore icon Sandman. He was not that Sandman. He had a lame-ass gimmick. But, probably this summer, 94, into the fall of 94, Sandman would change and get his drinking beer gimmick, or whatever you want to call it. He was just like a regular guy in a bar that you could see in a bar drinking with. That's who the Sandman was. He didn't need a character. He was himself, basically. He came to the ring, smoked, drank beer, beat the crap out of people with his cane. That was the Sandman. He didn't need a gimmick. Up next, after Shane Douglas, I believe, beat the Sandman to retain the ECW title, up next was the last match on the show. The Headhunters, a big team of two really fat guys with face paint on. I believe they worked in Japan in IWA promotion, hardcore promotion in Japan, IWA. They also might have worked for All Japan Pro Wrestling, I'm not sure. But they did work in Japan. They were were the hardcore style of tag team wrestlers. They wrestled the hardcore brawling style. But for two big fat guys, they were pretty athletic. They could both do a moonsault off the top rope. So the Headhunters took on Crash, the Terminator, which was Bill DeMott at the time. Bill DeMott was in ECW for a very, very short time. This was probably his only ECW show, and he was an indie wrestler at the time. Bill DeMott was called Crash the Terminator. His tag team partner was Miguel Perez Jr. Later on, Miguel Perez Jr. would become part of the Los Bolicuas in the WWF in the Attitude Era. And if you don't remember the guy, basically his chest was full of fur. The guy had a ton of chest hair, and that always looked nasty. And fans would yell at him in the WWF. When I went to a house show in 97, fans were yelling at him, chanting, "Shave your back, shave your back." Guy had hair everywhere, all over his back and all over his chest. He had more hair than George the Animal Steel did. Anyways, Crash the Terminator and Miguel Perez Jr. took on the Headhunters, and it was a baseball bat match. Basically, they were brawling on the outside of the ring, and a baseball bat was laying in the middle of the ring. And I believe the only way to win the match is to get to the baseball bat first into the ring. Crash the Terminator, I believe, Bill DeMott got to the bat, swung it, missed, and hit the ring post. And I don't remember who won the match, but it was a straight up brawl. That's what ECW was in 93. Straight up, hard hitting, hardcore wrestling action. That was Ultra Clash 93. Took place September in 93 in September. And it was a good, different show. Definitely. If you've never seen it, it's not on the network, but you can order it online on a website that sells ECW videos. It's called Ultra Clash 93, or you can look it up online and read the results. It's a way different show than anything WWF or WCW was doing in '93. Now I'm going to talk about WCW Halloween Havoc '93. Took place from New Orleans, Louisiana. And before this Halloween Havoc, I believe on a Clash of Champions, this guy debuted in WCW, formerly Tugboat in the WWF, formerly Typhoon in the WWF. This was, who am I talking about? I'm talking about the one and only Shockmaster. He will shock you, is what they like to say. And the Shockmaster did shock the fans of WCW, because shockingly, the fans were so shocked at how bad this gimmick was. It was awful. It was the shits. It was just stupid as hell. I don't even understand what the gimmick was. He had a helmet on, a Star Wars helmet that was painted silver and all bedazzled with sparkles all over it. I don't know what he was supposed to be. And he was dressed like a freaking the construction worker from the Village People. That's what the Shockmaster looked like. I don't understand his gimmick, never have. But watching and talking about the Shockmaster, watching him when he debuted, he tripped. It wasn't his fault. WCW built a wall for him to break through, and he tripped over a 2x4, a big piece of wood. He tripped over it, fell down. His helmet fell off his head, and his debut basically was ruined from the second he broke through that wall. He tripped and he fell on his face, and I'm sure the crowd laughed, and the crowd was laughing at him. I don't think they were laughing with him. I think the fans were laughing at the Shockmaster. I have nothing against the guy. I'm sure he's a really nice guy and a really nice man. But the gimmick, the Shockmaster, was god awful. And maybe if he went to tripped over that piece of wood, maybe if he went to tripped and fell on his face and his helmet fell off to expose who he was, then maybe the gimmick would have maybe worked. But it did not. The second he debuted, it was not good for anybody. And I believe the Shockmaster was a Dusty Rhodes idea. God bless Dusty. But he did have some really odd ideas for gimmicks in the early 90s. Oz was a really bad gimmick he came up with, and the Shockmaster was also a really bad gimmick. But that one, those gimmicks that Dusty thought of, I guess those will not ruin his legacy. Dusty Rhodes is all-time great in the ring, and at promos he's an all-time great, and he will be remembered forever. So, first match of Halloween Havoc. I think it was the first match. I don't know. The Shockmaster, Ice Train, and Charlie Norris defeated the team of Harlem Heat and the Equalizer. It wasn't much to this match. It was pretty boring. Up next, you had a really good match. Paul Orndorff took on Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. These two guys worked really well together, and they had a great match. Paul Orndorff defeats Ricky Steamboat by countout. And I guess the assassin, the masked assassin, was at ringside with Paul Orndorff. And he put a weapon in his mask to headbutt Steamboat. And I guess he knocked him unconscious. So, I don't know. Before that, I guess Paul Orndorff won by countout. I don't remember the finish, but Paul Orndorff wins. I remember it was a good match. Up next, you had TV champion Lord Steven Regal wrestled to a time limit draw with Davey Boy Smith the British Bulldog. That was a great match. Very good wrestling match. Two guys from England going at it for the TV title. Both were great workers in the ring. Both great storytellers. Bulldog had the strength and the power. Wrestling, power moves. Lord Steven Regal was a great technical wrestler. He could do anything in there with anybody. He could have a great match with anybody. Lord Steven Regal in his early run in WCW was really good. He was a great TV champ. Brought a lot of credibility to the TV title. Up next, after Steven Regal and British Bulldog wrestled to a time limit draw, you had Dustin Rhodes, United States Champion. Dustin Rhodes defeats stunning Steve Austin. Up next, the Nasty Boys were challenged the new tag team champions, Too Cold Scorpio and Marcus Alexander Bagwell, which they won the titles on a WCW Saturday night right before Sunday night of Halloween Havoc. So Marcus Alexander Bagwell and Too Cold had the tag team titles only for 24 hours because the Nasty Boys won the tag team titles back. I don't know why then Marcus and Too Cold lose the titles so quick. Very weird. They could have been good tag champs together. But obviously they wanted to give them back to the Nasty Boys. Maybe they did it to shock the fans. I don't know why. The Nasty Boys won their titles back 24 hours later. Very odd. They must have done that just for a surprise and shock value. Up next, you had Sting defeat Sid Vicious in an okay matchup. Up next, you had Rick Rude defeat Nature Boy Ric Flair by disqualification. And that was a very good match. Rick Rude and Ric Flair could have great matches with just about anybody. They were that damn good. And they were both in their prime in 93. Flair was probably 43 to 44 years old in 93, but he was still in his prime. And Rick Rude was definitely in his prime in 93 at Halloween Havoc 93. Our main event was Big Van Vader, WCW World Champion, taking on Cactus Jack in a spin the wheel, make the deal match. The wheel landed on a Texas death match. This was a brawl, and this was a pretty damn good match between Cactus and Vader. They had a feud in 93 before this where Vader power bombed Cactus on his head on the concrete. It didn't really look like concrete. It was outside of the ring on a WCW Saturday night. Vader picked up Cactus and power bombed him on the floor. And they said Cactus Jack was knocked out unconscious and he got concussions. And then after that storyline of the injury, Vader taking out Cactus, they did a storyline where Cactus Jack was homeless and became homeless. I guess he lost his memory somehow from the injury, and I don't know how he became homeless. Made no sense. It was very stupid, very odd and stupid storyline that made no sense. But I guess somebody on WCW television found Cactus Jack homeless in Cleveland, and then they basically talked him into coming back, and I guess he got his memory back, and he came back then as Cactus Jack. Bad storyline. But Vader and Cactus had a really good match at Halloween Havoc 93. They both got busted open and bled, and that made sense because it was a Texas death match. Of course, both guys should bleed on pay-per-view. And Vader wins and retains the WCW World Championship. Up next, I'm going to talk about WCW at a pay-per-view before Starrcade in November of 93, November 20th, 93. It was called WCW Battlebowl. It was the concept of Battlebowl, the lethal lottery. This whole pay-per-view was Battlebowl matches, picking names of the wrestlers out of a lottery, and basically the baby faces and the heels all became tag team partners in Battlebowl. Battlebowl was also Mean Gene Okerlund's WCW pay-per-view debut. Mean Gene left WWF after you couldn't come to an agreement for a new contract, and the WWF, I guess, wanted a younger looking announcer than Mean Gene. They went with Todd Pettengill from 93 to 97. Todd Pettengill was around in the WWF as the main backstage announcer. If you watch WWF in 93 or 94 or 95, you know and you remember Todd Pettengill. So Mean Gene went to WCW in November 93, and he was signed by WCW to be the main announcer, and this was at Battlebowl. 93 was Mean Gene Okerlund's WCW debut. Opening round matches for Battlebowl. You had Cactus Jack and Big Van Vader team up. A month earlier, they were in a war in a Texas death match at Halloween Havoc. At Battlebowl, they were tag team partners and they worked pretty good together. They defeated the team of Charlie Norris and Kane. I'm not talking about Kane, the Big Red Machine, who appeared in the WWF at Bad Blood 97. I'm not talking about that Kane. This Kane was one of the members of Harlem Heat. I don't remember if Kane was Stevie Ray or Booker T, but Kane was one of the Harlem Heat. In 93, WCW gave Harlem Heat the names of Kane and Cole. Why? I don't know. Obviously, in 94, they changed their names to Booker T and Stevie Ray. So Harlem Heat in 93 in WCW was known as Kane and Cole. So they lose to Vader and Cactus. They go on to Battlebowl, the Battle Royal, which I don't know. I guess the winner of Battlebowl, Battle Royal, got a world title shot at Starrcade 93. So I think that was whoever won the Battlebowl, Battle Royal, got a world title shot, I guess. I don't really remember. Up next, in the second Battlebowl tag team match, you had Paul Orndorff and Ricky Steamboat win by countout, or they were defeated by countout by the team of again, I'm reading the wrong goddamn thing here. My bad. I read the wrong matches that kicked off Battlebowl. The second match of Battlebowl was Johnny B. Bad and Brian Knobbs, one of the Nasty Boys, teaming up to take on, and they defeated the team of Paul Roma and Eric Watts. So Johnny B. Bad and Brian Knobbs go on to Battlebowl and are entered into the Battle Royal. Up next, you had the Shockmaster and Paul Orndorff defeat the team of Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Lord Steven Regal. And Lord Steven and Ricky Steamboat did not work as a tag team. They did not like each other in this match. Lord Steven looked disgusted standing on the apron that he was even partners with Ricky Steamboat. I believe Ricky Steamboat left Lord Steven at ringside. They did not work as tag partners because obviously Lord Steven was a heel and Ricky Steamboat was a babyface. And they did not like each other, obviously, because after Battlebowl at Starrcade, you had Ricky Steamboat challenge Lord Steven for the TV title. Up next, so the Shockmaster and Paul Orndorff go on to Battlebowl. Up next, you had the team of King Kong, one of the awesome, whatever the hell their name was of their tag team, the Colossal Kongs. One guy was called King Kong, the other guy was called Awesome Kong. They were the Colossal Kongs, tag team. They had masks, and they were two gigantically obese, fat, white guys with masks on and gold tees, and they looked god-awful, and they were just bad wrestlers. So, King Kong, his tag team partner was Dustin Rhodes. They defeated the team of King Kong's tag team partner, Awesome Kong, and Awesome Kong's partner was the Equalizer. Later, I think the Equalizer later on would become Dave Sullivan. So King Kong and Dustin Rhodes qualify for Battlebowl, and that's just a ridiculous name to call for a tag team, to call one guy King Kong, the other guy Awesome Kong, the Kongs, and I guess their name was Colossal Kongs. It was god awful, ladies and gentlemen. It was so bad that it's funny now. It's really funny. Watch them in action on Battlebowl 93, and the Colossal Kongs were also in a tag match against Flair and Sting on a Clash of Champions. I think Clash of Champions from November or September of 93. Up next, in more Battlebowl Lethal Lottery tag team action. The team of Ron Simmons, or the team of Sting first. The team of Sting and Jerry Saggs, one of the Nasty Boys, defeat the team of Ron Simmons and Keith Cole. Keith Cole was, I think, Booker T. Could have been someone else, but I think it was Booker T. So Sting and Jerry Saggs qualify for Battle Royal. Up next, Ric Flair and Stunning Steve Austin team up, and they defeat the team of Too Cold Scorpio and Max Payne. I was surprised Flair and Steve Austin at the time worked together to qualify and win a match at Battlebowl. Up next, so Flair and Steve Austin go on to the Battle Royal. Up next, you had Rick Rude team up with Shanghai Pierce. They defeat the team of Shanghai Pierce's tag team partner Tex Slinginger and Marcus Alexander Bagwell. So Rick Rude and Shanghai Pierce go on to the Battle Royal. Road Warrior Hawk and Rip Rogers. I never saw much of Rip Rogers growing up. I didn't even know who the guy was until I saw him in WCW. And I guess he was a trainer for, I think, Ohio Valley Wrestling under the WWE. Or Rip Rogers might have been a trainer for Florida Championship Wrestling, FCW, before NXT. That's all I know about Rip Rogers. Is later on, after he retired, WWE hired him as a trainer to train young talent. I don't think Rip Rogers was ever a big star because he wasn't. Maybe he was somewhere in the country, but I never saw the guy wrestle. So, Road Warrior Hawk and Rip Rogers defeat the team of Davey Boy Smith and Cole. I guess Cole was, who knows? I don't know who the hell he was. I hope Cole wasn't Booker T. I don't know who he was. Could have been. Who knows? Cole was Booker T, because he did team up with Davey Boy Smith at Battlebowl. I remember now. Booker T, that's really sad that Booker T and Davey Boy Smith did not win this match and qualify. But obviously they did not work well together, because one was a heel and one was a babyface. And Road Warrior Hawk, to win this match, picked up Rip Rogers after he was laying on the ramp, knocked out for a really long time and he couldn't get up. Road Warrior Hawk picked him up, press slammed him, threw him on Booker T, and they won the match like that, 1, 2, 3. So Road Warrior Hawk and Rip Rogers go to Battlebowl. In the Battle Royal, involving the winners of the tag team matches at Battlebowl 93 pay-per-view, Big Van Vader won Battlebowl by last eliminating Sting. I thought Ric Flair won it. Obviously, I was wrong. Now I remember Ric Flair did not win. Vader took him out on the ramp. Vader splashed Ric Flair and took him out of the match. Flair was screaming like he broke his back or he injured his ribs. So Vader took out Ric Flair before Ric Flair could get in Battlebowl. Vader took out Ric Flair, took him out of the match. That set up their Starrcade 93 world title match. Obviously, that set it up to have Flair challenge Vader at Battlebowl. I talked about ECW Ultra Clash 93, and I talked about Halloween Havoc 93 from WCW, and I talked about WCW Battlebowl 93, which was, as I said, the first pay-per-view of that Mean Gene Okerlund was on, working for WCW in WCW. First appearance by Mean Gene in WCW was at Battlebowl 93. Next video, part 5 of 93, I will talk about the rosters. I was going to talk about them now, but I'm not going to. Next video, I'll talk about the rosters in WCW and the WWF in 93, and the roster in ECW of some great talent, great talented guys in all three companies. ECW was really small in 93. They were a small company that was just drawing probably under 300 people or less, maybe 200 only, or 200 to 300 people ECW was drawing in 93. So they were really small, but they had some great talent and some legends in their company in 93. I'll talk about ECW's roster, WCW's great roster, and WWF's pretty damn good roster. All three companies had Hall of Fame talent on their rosters, and all the talent was basically in their prime. So I'll talk about the rosters of 1993 in wrestling next video, and I'll talk about Survivor Series 93 and WCW Starrcade 93. And Survivor Series was, what I remember about it was Bobby the Brain Heenan's last WWF pay-per-view. That's very sad. And he would show up in WCW in 94. That is it. I'm done talking about part 4 of the Year in Wrestling 1993. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you watched. If you did not, that's okay. If you watched, thank you very much for watching, and that means you are a hardcore wrestling fan like I am. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed part 4 of the Year in Wrestling 1993. I will be back to do part 5, and I'll put it up on my YouTube on Wednesday. This part 3 if you watched it, this part 3, I'm putting it, it will be up on my YouTube by Tuesday. Anyways, thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at TNAWWE Guy. And my other account is NXT at NXTWWE Guy. Thanks for watching The Year in Wrestling 1993. This was part 4. Bye for now, everybody.